I read this book, which is 774 pages by Ron Chernow, about Rockefeller's life. I wasn't sure whether I could finish it. These are a few notes that I took from the book and I want to share it with you. He is a very influential figure in American history. Here is a brief introduction about his life. He was born in 1839 and came from a very humble background in upstate New York. Interesting thing is, his father was a con man, but John D. Rockefeller was determined from a young age to have values of discipline and ambition. He developed a strong work ethic and strive from a young age to better his life. I want to focus about the other aspects of lesser known facts about his life from the book. Here are 4 things that I've learned from the book. Number 1, frugality does not require lavishness. Disciplined financial habits grow wealth over time. One famous example of Rockefeller was his habit of very carefully tracking his personal spending, and he famously recorded some of his little spending on just like an apple, 5 cents, or buying a pencil, 10 cents, and getting a haircut 25 cents. So despite being the first billionaire in the world, his personal lifestyle was relatively modest. So while these numbers may seem very trivial to us, and especially to him relative to his wealth, it really highlighted his lifelong focus on cost control, which he brought on to his business. So it's a mindset that extended to his company, Standard Oil, where every cent of waste was targeted and reduced. Second thing is, he created a monopoly which was legal back then. Despite creating a monopoly, he was very persistent on driving prices down. So Standard Oil, and the main product of that time was kerosene, he really drove prices down, which benefit millions of consumers. He slashed the price of kerosene from 58 cents a gallon down to 8 cents a gallon. This massive price reduction was made possible by Rockefeller's efficient refining process, economies of scale, and secret rebates from the railroads. Competitors at that time could not match his costs and were driven out of business or were forced to sell to him. By 1880s, Standard Oil controlled over 90% of the oil refining market. But what's important is that despite creating a monopoly, he really passed on the rebates and the cost reductions to his customers. So the lesson is really about driving costs down, gaining a big market share, probably like what you can see in companies of these modern times. So you outcompete rivals and dominate the market. The third point is anticipating regulatory changes, and mind you, again, this is over 150 years ago. He foresaw changes early and started diversifying his business to protect assets and adopt a new strategy to preserve his wealth. So even before Standard Oil's breakup or dissolution in 1911, he started diversifying his assets to iron, steel, and other industries. So when the US Supreme Court ordered that Standard Oil to be broken up to 34 companies, Rockefeller's 25% ownership in each stake actually was worth more after the breakup. So the value of his companies like Chevron and Exxon went skyrocketing after the breakup. His fortune grew to the peak of $900 million at its peak. This is equivalent to $400 billion in today's money. So despite the court order breakup of his companies, his net worth actually increased. This really showed that he was able to protect and grow his assets despite the court order. This really shows the value of his insight and his ability to forecast regulation changes and diversifying his assets. The other lesson is lifelong learning through mentorship and learning from others. He chose to continue to seek for people who are able to advise him and mentor him. So Rockefeller regularly consulted another prominent person at the time, Frederick T. Gates, who is an advisor and philanthropist. So despite being one of the wealthiest persons on earth and in history, Rockefeller admitted that he did not know everything, and he sought expert advice on how to manage his wealth and philanthropy. And he sought expert advice on philanthropy and charitable causes. This humility helped him ensure that his charitable endeavors last over time. Another point was that there was public backlash using it as a learning opportunity. In other words, public criticism at that time was something that he took in a serious manner and guided his long-term strategy. So after Ida Tarbell's 1904's expose on Standard Oil, Rockefeller realized that he needed to reshape his public image. So by 1910, Rockefeller donated $90 million to medical research and public health initiatives. So one notable example was his donation of $1 million in 1901 to establish the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research. It played a huge pivotal role to eradicate hookworm in the southern United States at the point of time. So with this, he was able to further distance himself from his earlier image as a robber baron. So thinking about it, we always have criticisms around us, and I think that we can take in feedback and really put thought and action towards how we can address those issues. Even the most wealthiest man took criticism seriously and really shaped his long-term strategy. The last lesson is about slow and continuous growth over time versus aggressive growth. Steady growth can lead to more lasting success. So Rockefeller's deliberate strategy of buying out competitors when prices were low or waiting for opportunities in the market when prices were down gave him immense advantage. For instance, he purchased a Cleveland refinery from Henry Flagler in 1870 for $72,500. So this became one of the foundational moves for Standard Oil. So rather than buying Flagler's refinery at a premium, Rockefeller waited for Flagler's business to struggle. So this allowed him to buy it at a lower price. Over time, his methodical approach allowed Standard Oil to consolidate the whole industry. Over 90% of US oil refining at that time. So this made Standard Oil the largest and most dominant company in the world. So Rockefeller's patience and deliberate long-term strategy of buying out his competitors really paid off. So these are some of the strategies which allowed him to build his wealth over time, which are conceptually sound and financially impactful. In today's terms, his fortune would be over 400 billion US dollars. In summary, creating a monopoly over time, being frugal, and having a long-term strategy, working on feedback helped John Rockefeller amass his wealth. I am aware that there's a lot of feedback on his life and probably some of the negative aspects which I've not covered in this video. Feel free to leave a comment and subscribe if this helped you in any way.